Hello and welcome. Good to see you again, and thanks for listening in. We're getting some feedback from these, and all I can say is we totally appreciate it. And there's some hard work that goes into it. You know, we got Amanda and other people helping out in the office getting this all to occur. And anyway, so today we're going to talk about a concept which is unique to the American diet, and it's called breakfast. If you're not eating breakfast, you know what I'm talking about. And if you do eat breakfast, you know people who don't eat breakfast, and you're kind of like wondering why they don't, you know. Anyway, so breakfast is certainly the most important meal of the day. As a matter of fact, there's a few little tips I'm going to give you from Chinese medical theory. The ancients of Chinese medicine stated that breakfast is probably the most important meal. Lunch in many cultures is the largest meal with the best ratios of proteins and carbohydrates. You know, ratios of proteins and carbohydrates in all meals would be important. And dinner would be a little bit smaller, but again, good ratios of proteins and carbohydrates. And the basic, rule is not to eat 3 hours. Well, let's say 2 hours before you go to bed. So within that 2-hour period before going to bed, it's best not to eat anything. There are some exceptions. You can ask me about those if you want to. Shoot me an email or whatever. Anyway, today I want to talk about breakfast. There's a concept that I want to go over with you. It's called kanji. Now, kanji, if you go to Chinatown, I invite you to go to Chinatown, Chicago, San Francisco, New York, or whatever. What you would find when you were, to order kanji in a restaurant, or if you ate with a family who was Chinese, is you would find an interesting soup that would definitely taste interesting, a little bit odd, and have body parts of animals in it that you probably wouldn't appreciate. Now, if you are in Indonesia, listening to this, you probably would say that's normal. In America, we have this kind of odd thing where we don't really, use the whole animal, and in most other cultures, the entire animal is used. Anyway, kanji, as a term, the best translation would probably be to call it rice soup. And essentially, the rice soups that are out there are pretty interesting. So the recipe that we recommend for our patients, which is quite extraordinary in its ability to build your metabolism in the morning, but also to help your body so that you can lose weight, is basically just a porridge. It's almost like, if you could imagine if you've ever had cream of wheat as you were a kid, or maybe now, or if you had, say, like oatmeal, things of this nature. This is exactly that. It's warm, it's at the body temperature, a little higher than that, so it's very easy to digest, but it has crucial components in it. And the crucial components would be, number one, whole grains. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you what a grain is made of, and I want to explain to you why this is such a valuable little, thing in life, these grains. So let's take an example, brown rice. I could be talking about millet, amaranth, which is actually a little seed, has a lot of protein in it, quinoa. These are probably things that you may have heard of. Anyway, so let's just say this was a kernel of brown rice. There's a few components in this little guy as it's, kind of harvested and comes to you in a dried form. Essentially, you have the outside, which is called the bran, which offers fiber that everybody's all excited about, especially people with slow digestive systems. So if you were to, make sure you got the whole grain, you would get the bran versus, white rice, which really doesn't have much fiber at all and no nutritional value. Then, of course, you have the inside, which sustains, the life of the very center, which would be called the germ, which is kind of that vital essence, from which this little plant could potentially grow. I mean, if you were to plant this, in the right circumstances, humidity and, temperature and stuff, this would turn into the next, actual plant. So you'd have rice that could grow, usually underwater and so on, in a rice paddy. Anyway, so you get an idea of the components. Now, the key is how do you get the germ? Because the bran is relatively dense and relatively difficult to digest on its own, which is why it makes good fiber going through your digestive system. So the key would be to cook it. And so what I want you to do is take a look at the recipe that we have on our website for kanji. And Amanda, is that something you can put into the blog? Yeah, sure. So hopefully that's going to show up, on the screen at some point as I'm talking right now. So MilwaukeeACU.com. And then what you could do is go to the newsletter in particular that says what to eat for breakfast. And then there's a recipe that you could cook this in a crock pot overnight. The best thing to do with these grains is to use, say 3 to 4 parts of water to 1 part of grain in a crock pot overnight on low. You wake up in the morning after you've been, I forgot to mention you want to put a little dash of salt in there to really release the germ as much as possible. And this is a lot of fuel for you to go. Now, if you add certain things to it, like we actually have patients that they love this, right? It's like a little sundae bar for their kids, because you have to make it exciting for kids, right? If the kids don't like stuff that tastes gross, then they're not going to eat it. But you want your kids to be healthy, so it's this like conundrum for a parent, right? So what you'd do is you'd have like their favorite little dried fruits and maybe, their favorite raw fruits, for example, blueberries and strawberries have a very low glycemic index. You could have nuts and so on. Protein powder, we recommend veg protein powder. Incidentally, we just discovered they released a new form of veg that has no soy in it, and it has spirulina, and I think it's pea-based powder, as in the little pea pods, those kind of peas. And if you're okay with soy, which I think for many people is alright, for some people it's a problem. But anyway, there's 2 versions of it now, and you could just put, say 25 grams or 28 grams of protein powder into this, mix it up, almond milk, rice milk, oat milk, things of that nature. You have this little sundae bar for the whole family, and people are just kind of making their own little creation, and it probably is a lot healthier than making an actual ice cream sundae for breakfast, what some people probably do. And not only that, it's funner, and you could make it taste as good if you put a little dash of, say, apple juice or whatever. The key I have to give you as a tip when making protein shakes and things of this nature is to put raw rolled oats on top. So you make your bowl and you have it all ready to go, and you've got your pecans and your banana slices and a little juice and almond milk and your protein powder, and it all is going to taste great. Now what we want to do is, there is a lot of carbohydrate material in there, so you take raw rolled oats, the thick kind, not the quick version, and 2 tablespoons on top of this, and stir this thing up with enough fluid so that it's the density that you like. And it's going to last another hour and a half because of those rolled oats. What they do is they slow down the release of glucose in the bloodstream. It's a very complex carbohydrate when raw, in their raw state. So anyway, there you go. Kanji, the nectar and breakfast of the gods. Over and out. Thanks a lot. Feel free to email me if you have any questions about that. Curry@MilwaukeeACU.com. You can call the office if you have questions, 414-332-8888. And of course, check our website out, especially that particular newsletter on what to eat for breakfast. Thanks a lot for listening again. We certainly appreciate you using this information for the betterment of your health. Nothing I've said has been evaluated or recommended by the FDA. However, it can change your life. We had a patient who lost 70 pounds simply by doing this, using acupuncture and Chinese herbs, and walking 5 miles, I think 5 times a week. There's examples of this over and over. At the beginning of the year, there was a woman who lost 96 pounds. This isn't like some melt the fat fad. This is getting your body healthy, your metabolism working, and kanji is a cornerstone of that process. You want to change your life? It's a game changer having that for breakfast. Over and out. Thanks a lot for listening.